All right, so today we're going to be doing a deep dive into Rawi Hage's Niro's Game.
Okay.
And we're going to be looking at some excerpts from a review
Sounds good.
that really got me interested in this book. Um,
Cool.
so, yeah, by the end of this deep dive, you'll know enough about it to decide if it's something you want to pick up and read yourself.
Okay.
So this review called it like a really captivating and unsettling look at friendship and survival.
Hmm.
And it's set during the Lebanese Civil War.
Right.
And that really stood out to me, like the way the review was talking about, like,
Yeah,
how intense, like, friendship can be in that kind of setting.
absolutely. And I think, it's not your typical war buddies story or anything like that.
Right.
These two young men, Bassam and George, their friendship is kind of like a lifeline
Oh, wow.
for them in all this chaos. And like, there's this one scene where they're trapped in like a bombed out building.
Okay.
And Bassam, the more street smart one of the two, is trying to figure out how to get out. But George is focused on like rescuing this caged bird that he finds in the rubble. And it's like such a small detail, but it really tells you so much
Wow.
about their different personalities and how their bond is tested by like everything going on around them.
That's a really striking image, that bird. I mean, it really, it's interesting how Hay can say so much with like a
Right.
simple scene.
Absolutely.
So the review also talked about Hade's stark and poetic prose.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us an example of how that kind of language, like, brings the story to life?
Yeah, definitely. So there's this one passage where he describes like Beirut's streets. They've been all shattered by the war.
Yeah.
And he calls them veins of a city bleeding into the sea.
Oh.
And it's not just about the physical destruction. It's like this feeling of loss,
Yeah.
and like the city is slowly dying.
Right.
You really feel like you're there walking through those streets with the characters.
That's powerful stuff. It
Yeah.
really shows how important the language is,
Yeah,
for creating that atmosphere,
absolutely.
for really putting the reader in the story.
Totally.
Now let's talk about these two main characters, Bassam and George.
Okay.
The review highlighted how complex they are
Yeah.
and morally ambiguous.
They're not easy to figure out.
Right. And I find that kind of thing really intriguing.
Oh, for sure.
So what can you tell us about, like, how different their personalities are?
Well, Bassam, he's like super resourceful, almost cunning.
Yeah.
He'll do whatever it takes to survive, even if it means like crossing some moral lines.
Wow.
And then there's George, who's really struggling with his conscience,
Yeah.
even when things are really bad.
Yeah.
He feels guilty and questions everything he does.
Yeah.
And I think their dynamic, that push and pull between them,
Yeah.
it reflects like the bigger moral dilemmas of the war itself.
It makes you wonder how you would act in that kind of situation.
I guess.
Like, how far would you go to survive?
It's a tough question.
So the review also mentions these really difficult choices that they face. Can you tell us more about how those choices play out in the story?
Sure. One of the biggest choices they make involves this risky smuggling operation.
Yeah.
And Bassam sees it as a way to escape the violence,
Right.
a way out.
Yeah.
But for George, it's like going down a dark path morally.
Oh, wow.
He sees firsthand how brutal things are, and it like shatters his ideas about right and wrong.
Yeah.
And deciding to do this smuggling thing, it sets off all these other events
Mhm.
that lead to tragedy and like a huge rift between them.
It sounds like every choice they make just takes away a little more of their humanity.
You could say that, yeah.
And it's like this stark reminder that survival comes at a high cost.
Definitely.
And it's not just about individuals surviving. The review also talked about how the novel shows the human cost of conflict
Yes.
for, like, whole communities.
That's one of the things that makes the book so powerful. Hague doesn't just focus on Bassam and George.
Yeah.
He brings in these stories of other characters, too. Regular people caught in the middle,
Yeah.
whose lives are changed forever by the war. And there's this really moving scene where a bunch of women come together
Oh, wow.
to grieve for the people they've lost. And it doesn't matter what side they're on or what religion they are.
That's amazing.
It shows how war affects everyone. It causes pain for everyone.
It's those human stories that really make you understand the true cost of war.
Exactly.
So with all that in mind, why do you think this novel stays with readers even after they finish it?
I think it's because it makes you face some uncomfortable truths about what it means to be human.
Hmm.
It's not a simple good versus evil story.
Right.
It's about those gray areas, the choices we make when we're pushed to our limits.
Yeah.
And through Bassam and George's journey, Hage makes us think about these questions long after we've closed the book.
It sounds like a really powerful and thought-provoking read.
It is.
So, listener, would you consider picking up De Niro's Game after hearing all this?
I think you should. And as you read it, think about this. What do you think the title De Niro's Game means?
Ooh, that's a good one.
How does it tie into the themes of friendship survival and moral compromise that we've been talking about?
It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into De Niro's Game.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you found it insightful. Until next time, keep exploring.
See you later. Bye.